Josias Manzanillo. On April 8, 1997, Seattle Mariners reliever Josias Manzanillo was pitching against the Cleveland Indians at the Kingdom when he was struck by a 107-mile-per-hour line drive off the bat of Manny Ramirez. The ball hit him directly in the groin. Manzanillo was not wearing a protective cup. Despite the injury, he managed to recover the ball and throw out Jim Thome at home plate before leaving the field under his own power. He was later taken to the hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery for a ruptured testicle. Remarkably, Manzanillo returned to pitching later that season and went on to play several more years in the major leagues. Steve Yeager. On September 6, 1976, during a Labor Day game between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres at San Diego Stadium, catcher Steve Yeager suffered one of the most unusual injuries in baseball history. Yeager was standing in the on-deck circle in the 7th inning when teammate Bill Russell's bat shattered as he hit a ground ball. A large piece of the barrel flew toward Yeager and struck him in the neck, piercing his esophagus. Trainers and teammates immediately came to his aid, and Yeager was taken to Daniel Sharp's hospital, where surgeons removed 9 wood splinters and repaired the wound. Doctors said the injury narrowly missed major arteries and nerves, as well as his windpipe. Yeager remained hospitalized for several days but recovered quickly. He returned to the lineup only 3 weeks later. Following the accident, Yeager and Dodgers trainer Bill Buehler developed a protective flap that attached to catchers' masks to shield the throat. Adam Greenberg. On July 9, 2005, the Cubs were facing the Florida Marlins, and Adam Greenberg was sent in to pinch hit in the 9th inning, his first big league appearance. On the very first pitch he saw, a 92-mile-per-hour fastball from Valerio de los Santos struck him squarely in the back of the head. Greenberg immediately fell to the ground as teammates and trainers rushed to his aid. He was diagnosed with a concussion and a compound skull fracture, and though he was fortunate to avoid long-term brain damage, his recovery was slow and painful. He experienced severe vertigo, headaches, double vision, and balance problems that lingered for years. His major league debut turned out to be his only appearance in the big leagues. He was officially one of just 2 players ever hit by a pitch in their only plate appearance without taking the field. Tony Conigliaro. Tony Conigliaro was a local star from Revere, Massachusetts, signed by the Red Sox in 1962 at just 17 years old. By 1967, he had already reached 100 career home runs, the youngest in AL history to do so. On August 18, 1967, Conigliaro's career changed forever. Facing Jack Hamilton of the California Angels at Fenway Park, he was struck in the face by a fastball, suffering a fractured cheekbone, a dislocated jaw, and severe damage to his left retina. The injury left him with lasting vision problems and forced him to miss the rest of 1967 and all of 1968. Remarkably, he returned in 1969, earning Comeback Player of the Year honors. But his eyesight continued to deteriorate, and by 1971, he was forced to retire at just 26 years old. A brief comeback attempt in 1975 ended the same way, as his vision would never recover. Juan Encarnación. Juan Encarnación was an 11-year Major League veteran and a 2-time World Series champion. On August 31, 2007, while waiting in the on-deck circle during a game in St. Louis, he was struck in the face by a foul ball off the bat of teammate Aaron Miles. The ball hit him directly in the left eye, fracturing the orbital bone. Encarnación collapsed immediately and lay motionless for several minutes. He eventually got up with help, waved off a stretcher, and was assisted off the field by teammate Jim Edmonds. The injury ended Encarnación's 2007 season, and despite initial hopes, his vision never fully recovered. In January 2008, it was announced that he would miss the upcoming year, and by May, team officials acknowledged that the injury had ended his playing career. Tyler Zombro. On June 3, 2021, the Bulls were playing the Norfolk Tides at Durham Bulls Athletic Park. In the 8th inning, Zombro took the mound to face catcher Brett Cumberland. He threw a 90.6 miles per hour sinking fastball that Cumberland lined sharply back toward the mound. The ball struck Zombro in the right side of the head, just above his ear, at an estimated speed of 104 miles per hour. He immediately collapsed face first on the field and began seizing as players and trainers rushed to him. The game was halted, and after several minutes of medical attention, Zombro was taken from the field on a stretcher and transported to Duke University Hospital. Surgeons performed a 2.5-hour procedure to repair a skull fracture and reduce bleeding and swelling around his brain. The surgery required 16 titanium plates and 36 screws to stabilize the damage. Zombro spent 4 days in the intensive care unit and 2 additional days under monitoring before being released from the hospital on June 9th. He later said he had no memory of the incident. Tony Saunders, signed as an undrafted free agent by the expansion Florida Marlins in 1992, pitcher Tony Saunders quickly proved himself in the minors, dominating as a starter. His progress was briefly derailed by elbow reconstruction surgeries in 1994 and 1995, but he returned strong, earning a call-up in 1997 to join the Marlins rotation. That same year, he was part of a World Series championship team, flashing the potential of a reliable big league arm. But on May 26, 1999, everything stopped with one pitch. Facing Juan Gonzalez with a 3-2 count, Saunders delivered a pitch and his arm snapped with a sound loud enough to echo through the ballpark. He collapsed on the mound, screaming in agony, and had to be carted off as stunned teammates and fans looked on. Diagnosed with a broken humerus and torn ligament, his season was over. Still, Saunders refused to quit. After a grueling rehab, he returned to the minors in 2000, determined to make it back. But during just his second outing for the St. Petersburg Devil Rays, his arm broke a second time mid-pitch. With that, his major league career was finished. Dave Dravecky. Dave Dravecky spent much of the 1980s as a steady left-hander in the San Diego Padres rotation. In 1988, after 7 good starts, doctors discovered a desmoid tumor in his pitching arm. Surgery removed half of the deltoid muscle and required freezing his humerus bone to eliminate cancer cells. The operation saved his life, but it also left doctors certain he would never pitch again. Dravecky, however, pressed forward. He worked his way through rehab and, by the summer of 1989, was back on a mound. In front of an excited Candlestick Park crowd, he pitched 8 innings against the Reds and won. But just 5 days later in Montreal, his comeback unraveled in one of the most remembered injuries in baseball history. In the 6th inning, Dravecky delivered a pitch to Tim Raines. Mid-throw, his humerus snapped with a loud crack that was heard throughout Olympic Stadium. He collapsed on the mound as players and medical staff rushed to him. That pitch marked the end of his major league career. Later that postseason, while celebrating a playoff-clinching win, his fragile arm broke again. Soon after, the cancer returned. In 1991, his left arm and shoulder were amputated. He was awarded the 1989 Willie Mack Award and the Hutch Award for his perseverance and leadership. Today, Dravecky shares his story as a motivational speaker. Mike Coolbaugh. Mike Coolbaugh was drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays in the 16th round of the 1990 Major League Baseball draft and went on to spend more than a decade in professional baseball. A broken hand in 2002 cost him what might have been a major league call-up, and after more injuries, culminating in a shattered wrist in 2006, he ultimately retired from playing. Coolbaugh stayed in the game as a coach, joining the Tulsa Drillers in 2007. On July 22 of that season, while standing in the first base coach's box during a game against the Arkansas Travelers, he was struck in the neck by a line drive. The ball ruptured his left vertebral artery, causing a fatal brain hemorrhage. He was taken from the field with emergency care, but was pronounced dead less than an hour later at the age of 35. His death led Major League Baseball to require all base coaches to wear helmets starting in 2008. Ray Chapman. Ray Chapman joined the major leagues in 1912 with the Cleveland Indians, then known as the Cleveland Napoleons, and quickly became a steady contributor. On August 16, 1920, Cleveland faced the New York Yankees at the Polo Grounds. Chapman came to bat in the fifth inning against pitcher Carl Mays, who delivered with a submarine motion that made the ball difficult to track. At the time, baseballs were often kept in play until they were badly worn, discolored by dirt, and hard to see, particularly in late afternoon light. Eyewitnesses noted that Chapman made no attempt to move, likely because he never saw the pitch. The ball struck him in the head with such force that Mays initially thought it had hit the bat. Chapman fell to the ground but attempted to rise, telling teammates he was fine. Moments later, he collapsed and had to be carried from the field. At St. Lawrence Hospital, doctors diagnosed a skull fracture and operated to relieve pressure on the brain. But Chapman never regained consciousness. He died early the next morning, August 17, 1920, at age 29. Chapman remains the only player in Major League history to die directly from an injury sustained during a game. His death prompted changes to the sport, including stricter rules requiring umpires to replace dirty baseballs and the banning of the spitball, a baseball pitch in which the ball has been altered by the application of a foreign substance such as saliva or petroleum jelly. Decades later, his case was still cited in arguments for mandatory batting helmets, which were not fully adopted until the 1950s and 1960s.